Hello, welcome back to the Viper's Pit. Today, we will be covering the upcoming release of Baldur's Gate 3. So if you're an avid fan of the Baldur's Gate series, or Larian's original Sin games, then you want to stay with me until the end, because I'll be sharing with you all the news I've sourced and overheard about Baldur's Gate 3. Everything I know. We'll be talking about its development, story setting, gameplay, and a few other topics. But first, if you're new to the pit, welcome. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you like what I do. If not, you have my apology, and I wish you well. Now, that that's out of the way, why don't you and I take a trip to Baldur's Gate? Shall we? Coming of Baldur's Gate 3 was announced in Boston, Mass., USA during the Penny Arcade Expo 2020, or better known as the PAX East event. One of the biggest gaming culture festivals featuring tabletop, arcade, and video games. It's where Larian Studios gave a wider peek of what's coming with the Baldur's Gate series. Well, to start, they teased that it will feature realistic 3D characters and environments, hundreds of hours of playtime, hundreds of dialogue choices, and multiple ways to approach battles. As I mentioned earlier, if you're a fan of Larian games like Divinity Original Sins 2, then you'll love Baldur's Gate 3 because it's basically from the same developers, plus it's like a whole different level of gameplay and story. Let's compare the Original Sins 2 and Baldur's Gate 3. And to get a clearer picture, let's put it into numbers. First of all, for the number of combat encounters, Original Sins offered 22, whereas in the Baldur's Gate, we'll be having a total of 80 different, what I like to call boss battles. Let's call it that. In terms of dialogue lines, Original Sins had 17,600, while Baldur's Gate will offer 45,980. We can genuinely expect colorful, vivid story. Also, Original Sins only had 142 unique characters. While that's already quite a significant number, if you ask me, Baldur's Gate is way up there with 596. That's a large pool of characters. And of course, in terms of number of spells and actions that players can use, Original Sins had 69, whereas Baldur's Gate has a staggering 146. That's unique characters now. That's a lot to explore and discover. That's the stats the last time I checked. But Larian also mentioned that these numbers are changing continuously. At the same time the game is being developed, it is introducing new content daily. What I can say for 100% is, if Larian will live up to its numbers regarding Baldur's Gate 3, then this game is going to be one of the best games of the year. Well, fingers crossed on the release date happening this year for the full one. Okay. But what about the graphics? As I've been saying in all of our videos, graphics make the RPG experience a worthy one. Larian's Divinity games had a stylized look. Will this be the same for Baldur's Gate 3? Well, according to the studio, It will lean more towards realism. As I've read and evident in their trailers, everything from lush green forests to dark dungeons is animated with rich and detailed textures. Plus, Larian also allowed zooming in on the characters' faces to enable us to appreciate the story better. Larian says we can expect next-gen AAA experience. We sure hope so. Let's hope they deliver. Baldur's Gate 3 will have a preset characters and custom ones. And Larian teased that the custom characters will have a strong connection to the world and in the main arc of the story. According to the developers, players won't feel shortchanged in the terms of narrative breadth and depth. If we choose to play as a custom character, and since Baldur's Gate 3 is an RPG, Larian also stressed that the player's choices would be serious and have consequences. And we've heard that before too, but I think I believe them on this one. As we, the players, move through the adventure, quest lines, and stories that directly relate to the characters, we will discover some of our backstories and some of the things that our character has done. And these sneak peeks are quite impressive. But before we go any deeper, for those of you who are new to Baldur's Gate series, first let's have a quick walkthrough of where Baldur's Gate came from, leading up till now. The first Baldur's Gate game was developed by BioWare and Black Isle Studios and published by Interplay in 1998. And the central pillar from which its rules were made is the very classic tabletop RPG, Dungeons and Dragons. For the younger ones who are watching who might not have heard of a tabletop RPG before, it's a game book with a board and dice. That's how we used to roll. If you have watched the popular Netflix TV series, Stranger Things, the game the boys were playing in the beginning scenes before Will Byers was abducted is a tabletop RPG. In fact, it's actually Dungeons and Dragons that they were playing. And one more fun fact for you. Later on when the series clicked and got very popular, a themed Dungeons and Dragons game board was even released. Dungeons and Dragons was first published in 1974 and has been in its 5th edition since 2014. The fact that Baldur's Gate game rules were tailored from this classic yet invaluable tabletop RPG already guarantees that Baldur's Gate would not go wrong. Well, let me back up on this one. In some ways, it might, but what I'm trying to say is that if a game is anchored by a set of rules that has proven its worth over time, then the greater chances are it will work. And yes, the first Baldur's Gate succeeded, so much so that it gave birth to a sequel, Baldur's Gate 2: Shadows of Amn, in 2000. Black Isle was supposed to follow it with Baldur's Gate 3, The Black Hound, but Interplay experienced some financial troubles and eventually shut down, also forcing Black Isle to cancel the whole thing. Fortunately for us, after 20 years, Larian Studios decided to jump into the picture and rescue the story. However, it should be noted that the canceled game in Baldur's Gate 3, The Black Hound, has no connection with the upcoming Baldur's Gate 3. Like the versions that came before it, Baldur's Gate 3 will also be taking place in the Dungeons & Dragons Forgotten Realms universe. During the intro, players will build their character by selecting gender, class, and skill set, standard for this kind of game. According to some sources, the final game will include 15 races, and sub-races, of course, and 8 classes, but as Larian mentioned, there may be more coming on the way or always being added to. It can be played in either the third person or bird's eye view. What's also interesting about it is that the game environment is very volatile, so to speak. It changes in any situation. For example, a room with the floor covered in oil is harmless by itself. But when opponents target you with balls of flame that can ignite the oil and set you on fire, that's getting interactive and kind of realistic. You can destroy ground to get underneath enemies, climb up and break ladders so you can't be followed, knock pedestals down. And I don't know if this will work. I don't think so. But they say you can even take off your boot and throw it at the enemy if you have to. But those are just a few demonstrations of how the game can let you do almost anything you think of, if you pay enough attention to your environment. You'll find multiple ways to attack enemies beyond the usual attacks. Let's just say the game will challenge your creativity and your patience, most likely. The player will have to start outside of the city of Baldur's Gate, but will eventually head into the city walls. And as mentioned, it is set in Forgotten Realms, but with a different and new story. As you will see in the trailers, these creatures called Mind Flayers had discovered a way to make vessels that could transport them between worlds and found their way into the city. The concept of the Mind Flayers is also from the Dungeons & Dragons universe, although it may seem familiar from another source. But these are ancient and horrifying forces that live in the Underdark and have strong psionic powers like telekinesis and foresight. They can control minds and feed on the brains, much like the zombies in PvZ, but more terrifying, of course. Like most antagonistic motives, they came to invade. The player's character and their main allies are all infected with a parasitic tadpole, at least that's what I call it, that should turn them into mind flayers. However, the enemies are having a little problem because you still seem to be able to respond well. So, one of the main quests is to learn more about these parasitic tadpoles and find ways to get them out. Baldur's Gate has also adopted the classes from Dungeons & Dragons. According to senior writer Adam Smith, the stories are very much tied to class at times. It was mentioned earlier that there would be as many as 8 classes, but only 6 have been revealed, which are the same classes from Dungeons & Dragons, of course. Players can pick the class and subsequently select a specialized archetype. The 6 categories will be Fighter, Wizard, Rogue, Ranger, Cleric, and Warlock. If you choose a Fighter, you can further pick whether to become a Battle Master or an Eldritch Knight. If you decide to be a Wizard, you can be an Evocation or Abjuration. If you choose Rogue, you can be an Arcane Trickster or a Thief. If you decide to be a Ranger, you have the option to be a Hunter or a Beastmaster. If you want to be a cleric, you can choose between life, light, or trickery. And lastly, if you pick a warlock class, you can choose to be a fiend or the Great One. Baldur's Gate 3 official website has also introduced 5 characters that belong from different classes that represent, although it didn't represent the Ranger class. We don't know why yet or who it will be. The fighter class is characterized by Laziel, a ferocious warrior, according to the website description, which we can expect to be the in-game description also. Laziel is a ferocious, gothic warrior, mighty even by the standards of her mind flayer hunting kind. Faced with transforming into the very monster she's sworn to destroy, Laziel must prove herself worthy of rejoining her people, if they don't kill her first. We see a struggle for guilt and responsibility for this character. Maybe. Then there's the wizard prodigy Gale, whose love for the goddess made him attempt a dread feat no mortal should. Blighted by forbidden magic of the ancient Netherthrim, Gale survives to undo the corruption overtaking him and win back his goddess's favor before he becomes a destroyer of worlds. Based on this description, Gale's going to bring romance into the story one way or another. Next, we have the rogue representative Astarion, who stalked the night as a vampire spawn for centuries, serving a sadistic master until the mind flayer parasite freed him of his bonds. Now that he can walk in daylight, the game is on. For only his old master stands in the way of him becoming the greatest vampire the world has ever known. So, we can say that Astarion is going to be the symbol of freedom and thirst for power. And I see a little revenge in the future too. The fourth character, we have the loyal warrior Shadowheart, who's also a loyal cleric of Shar, the sole survivor of a holy mission undertaken on the mistress of the knight's behest. She alone must deliver the relic of immense power to her coven in Baldur's Gate, while threatened by strange new magic burgeoning from within. And if I'm correct in interpreting this one, and I think I am, the new magic means mind flayers. Shadowheart also bears some great responsibility, like Laziel. And lastly, we have the warlock living legend, a noble by birth, Will, who made his name as a heroic blade of the frontiers. But to become the living legend, he struck a bargain with the devil, a deal from which he longs to break free before it consumes his soul for good. We can therefore say that Will gained power at a significant cost. Will probably represent the struggle of all man. Just my opinion. These are great characters with even more incredible backstories, no doubt. I just wish the descriptions could have been a little more creative and dramatic to portray the characters a little better. But all in all, it's quality work. And you guys listen to me, so you understand. There's no announcement yet when the full game will be released, but an early access is offered and will launch on September the 30th. Of course, this year, but it's not a complete experience. and should not be expected because it's an early access version, which will only be about 20 to 25 hours of gameplay, which, if you ask me, is still a lot of gameplay on a single playthrough. In a sense, it's a sample that's meant to test what more should be improved on the game. So if you'd like to help Larian develop Baldur's Gate 3, you might consider availing the early access. I know I sure am. Just head on to their official website and go from there. Well, you guys, that's all the Vipers found out for now. But I guess we'll just have to stay tuned for announcements from Larian. Don't forget, you always have a friend here at the Viper's Pit. And remember, you can do anything you put your mind to. I've got faith in you. That being said, that's it for me. See you in the next video. Holy Viper, out.